Colleagues, we have already formed a quorum and it's the scheduled time. First thing to do is to elect the deputy chairman, which we have not managed to do last time because we have already had a meeting on the 19th of October, and Mr. Wu Chi-wai and Mr. Christopher Chung were nominated as deputy chairman, but then Mr. Albert Chan suggested that they would need to make a declaration of interest in a minute's time. So do we need to ask them to declare their interest? If there is no need for them to do so, then we can start off with the election right away under the House rules. I will chair the election. First of all, we will do that by secret ballot. First, I'll call upon the colleagues, the staff from the Secretariat to distribute the ballot paper.
咁根據內務守則咧，每名
In accordance with House rules, a serial number will be assigned to each candidate, and please tick right next to the name of the candidates. Number 1 is Wu Chi-wai, number 2 is Christopher Chung. As is a secret ballot, please do not show your ballot paper to other members, and please cover your ballot paper without the need to fold them up. Okay? Any questions? If not, then we will distribute the ballot papers to members, and please make your choice on the ballot paper, and then voting is closed and the staff will not be distributing any further ballot paper to members. I haven't done mine on the ballot paper.
好，政工作人員咧就
Okay, colleagues may now collect the ballot papers from members.
唔該。請大家喺投票完之前呢
Please do not leave your seats after you have handed in the ballot paper.
咁上次咧提名胡志偉議員嘅
Mr. Alan Leung nominated Mr. Wu Chi-wai. He hasn't arrived, and Mr. Ip Kwok-him seconds Mr. Christopher Chung's nomination. So, Mr. Ip, please come forward to monitor the counting. Do we need to read that aloud? If not, then we will just count the votes, and then Mr. Ip will monitor the counting.
而家有幾多張選票收咗？
How many ballot papers have we received? We distributed a total of 9, and we also collected 9 in return. Mr. Wu Chi-wai. Sorry, number 2, Mr. Chung, Mr. Christopher Chung. Number 2, Mr. Christopher Chung. Number 2, Mr. Christopher Chung. Number 2. Number 2. Number 2. Number 2. Number 2. Number 2. Number 1, Mr. Wu Chi-wai has not got any votes, so Mr. Chung got 9 votes. Congratulations to Mr. Christopher Chung.
嚇，使唔使坐出嚟？咁咧，我哋而家咧就請通過。
Okay, item 2, confirmation of minutes of the last meeting held on the 9th of October 2014 in paper number CB bracket 181/14 to 15. As of now, the Secretariat has not received any proposals for amendments. Any questions or proposals for amendments here and now? If not, minutes confirmed. Information papers issued since the meeting held on the 7th of July, including CB bracket 1 1858 bracket 01, CB bracket 1 1897 bracket 01, and CB bracket 1 1900 bracket 01, and CB bracket 1 1968 1314 bracket 01, and another paper. All right, so any further questions? Mr. Tony Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. The only thing that I'd like to suggest is you may wish to take it up with the THB is about the supervision of first-hand sales residential properties, and with regard to the way forward. Has the administration got any idea as to how long it would take? So it's about paragraph 15 on the way forward. So we'll take it up with the administration. Mr. Ip Kwok Him, any further questions? Yes, Madam Chair, with regard to public housing and the entire housing policy is about the cycle of supply. So can we be given further information? I think we need to discuss it further because it's about the construction of public housing units and the relationship with the housing market. So we'll be discussing that shortly. Okay. If there are no further questions about information papers issued since the last meeting, we'll discuss the next item. Issues for discussion at the next meeting. Paper number CB bracket 1, 130 bracket 01 and bracket 02. So that's the list of follow-up actions and also list of outstanding items for discussion. Mr. Wong Kwok Heng. Madam Chair, there are problems with regard to the tenant purchase scheme. There is leakage problems. So I think that's consistent with the office responsible for leakage problems, and it's been months since I took it up and still the problem is not over. So can we arrange for this to be discussed later? Well, originally we will be discussing the enhanced measures to tackle ceiling seepages in public rental housing estates units. So we can ask the administration to include this in the discussion as well because it is somewhat related. So we'll be able to deal with it in a timely manner. Yes, Mr. Chong. Yes. Can we discuss the issue of overcrowding relief in public housing estates? Because within the same estate, there are some differential policies for the new tenants. They would be under the new policy, and then for those sitting tenants, they would be under the old policy. And indeed, for couples with one child and with one son and one daughter, they are not able to have separate rooms, and then they would have difficulties coping with the situation because even when they want to get change, they would have difficulty sharing the same room. Yes, if you look at the paper, in fact, last time we also discussed the issue about housing society of the policy of rent subsidy, and last time they did not give us an answer as to what will be done. So at the upcoming meetings, we will be discussing the issue of rent subsidy offered by housing society, and that should be offered to tenants of the housing society estates. Well, originally, other than the ceiling seepages problem, we will be incorporating the suggestion by Mr. Wong Kwok Heng. We will not just be discussing the public housing estate problems. We will also be discussing the tenant purchase scheme housing, and we will also be discussing the public housing construction program 2014 to 2018-19, and we'll be discussing land supply as suggested by Mr. Ip Kwok Him. Okay, so those two items will be for the December meeting, and if you have any further suggestions, please do let us know, and then we'll see what we can do about them. Mr. Christopher Chung. Yes, well, for public housing estates or HOS, sometimes the facilities are not for the tenants of the estate. They will be used by other tenants of other housing estates. So it's there will be cross-use by other housing estate tenants and residents. So how are we going to resolve those problems? For example, in a public housing court, there would be an escalator for use by other tenants, and then there would also be some common facilities that would be open to other estates. So the facilities might not be used exclusively for that particular housing estate. And how about the repair and maintenance issue? That would also cause some inconvenience. So we will also have to tackle the issue of repair and maintenance and responsibility. So in the Eastern District, there are many such cases. Mr. Wu Chi-wai, I understand what Mr. Chung was referring to, but then I think he will have to be more specific. Well, there are some public facilities located within HOS estates for use by tenants from other estates. So I think the chaotic situation has been caused by some DMCs on the definition of certain facilities. For example, within a housing estate, there is a soccer pitch or ball court, but then it's not just for the exclusive use of residents of that particular housing estate. All right, for facilities within public housing estate, actually residents don't mind because it's not their responsibility to repair and maintain. But then once a public housing estate becomes a tenant purchase scheme estate, or if it becomes a car park under the link, then that would also become a problem. We understand your concerns. Well, either you provide us with further information or we can take it up with the department, and I would suggest to them that we should discuss these TPS estates and also public house and also public housing estates or rental housing estates, and also HOS facilities management issue. Mr. Lang Yu-chung, yes, there would be sitting out areas and also recreational grounds which might be owned by the link, but then they are not responsible for repairing and maintaining them. And when we try to meet them up, they refuse. So that's a problem. And also for housing societies, tenant purchase schemes or the rental estates rent adjustment. Yes, we said that they should set up or introduce a rent subsidy scheme within their housing estates, and that will be arranged shortly because we're concerned that next year they're going to increase their rents again. Okay, if there are no further comments, then let's move on. Enhanced partnering arrangements among estate management advisory committees and non-government organizations to promote neighborhoodliness in public rental housing estates, paper number CB-1 130-03 and CB-1 130/1415-04。
政府部門出席嘅代表呢有3位，我就唔逐一介紹啦嚇。咁大家嘅台面上面應該有佢哋嘅名單嘅。
We have 3 government officials with us today. I don't propose to read the names out. So I understand that you have a PowerPoint presentation. So can you briefly walk us through that? Because members have already read the paper. So please be brief in your presentation. Chairman, I say a few words in my opening remarks, and then I'll defer to my colleague to do the PowerPoint presentation. All along, the Housing Authority attaches a lot of importance to harmonious relationship amongst residents, and starting from 2009 in public housing estates, we have been introducing this enhanced partnering arrangement in public housing estates, and under the arrangement, EMAC and some housing management committees can work with non-government organizations in organizing community building programs in order to enhance the neighborhoodliness and also sense of belonging to that particular housing estate. And in 2009, 2011 and 2013, we came to report to you on the progress of the arrangement. All in all, the partnership program has been welcomed by the residents, and it's been held in high regard in these housing estates. It has been able to promote neighborhoodliness and also sense of belonging amongst the residents. I'll defer to my colleague who will do a PowerPoint presentation to update you on the latest situation. Thank you, Mr. Leung. First, by way of background, as members are familiar with that, well, in 2009, the program was first introduced, and these EMACs would work with some NGOs in organizing some community activities. And all along, the main theme is to build caring and cohesive communities. And the way we went about it was we invite NGOs to submit proposals and budgets for our EMACs to vet and discuss and approve the proposals by different NGOs. And in terms of the financial arrangement, we have already arranged for some 30% to the EMAC to organize such partnership programs.
Well, there are PRH estates of different sizes. For small estates with less than 3,000 units, we anticipate that they will hold 2 to 3 events per year, and the funding cap is $30,000. And for large estates having flats of over 3,000 flats, they will hold 3 to 4 events each year, and the ceiling for the funding is $50,000. In 2011 and 2013, the HA agreed that such partnering arrangements be continued, and in 2013 we also implemented a new measure, i.e. the EMACs, if they could not find suitable NGOs, they could undertake a function on its own, a thematic function per annum on its own. As to the nature or the categorization of the functions in the 2013-14, we held a total of 420 such events. They were in all forms, including seminars, workshops, variety shows, carnivals, etc. And the events are very much welcomed by the EMACs and also the tenants. And all the EMACs could complete or achieve the targeted number of events. Now, as to the themes of these partnering functions, what are they? These are caring and supportive services, targeting the elders, families, women, children and adolescents. And also, we organize some education, health and training activities and courses. Of course, we attach a lot of importance to environmental protection, and we've done a lot on that front. And for other activities, promoting harmonious living. Last year, we also organized some activities related to our 60th anniversary, and also cherishing the PRH resources and mental health, etc. So in this pie chart, you can see that 32% of the activities are related to works with the elderly, families and women, and 17% are related to education, health, and so on. Around 20% are related to greening activities and other activities, harmonious living, promoting neighborliness, and so on. They take up 32% of all activities. So we are organizing these activities on a yearly basis, and we particularly put emphasis on caring for the elderly and greening. And also, we are partnering with the Department of Health to organize community health promotion activities with special themes. You can tell from these photos. On the left is a elderly carnival and then a health talk, and on the right there is a photo showing us taking blood pressure for the elders. Now we are also putting emphasis on the families and the young people. And the photo on the left shows a photo targeting the entire family, and also on the right the photo is on activity for both the young and the old. And for community health promotion, we have organized carnivals aiming to instill positive energy, promoting neighborliness, and also promoting community health. In terms of greening activities, we are organizing from time to time greening festivals and also planting activities and so on. Actually, in the beginning of this year, we held a biannual seminar for EMAC members. And in this big event, we provide a platform for EMAC members to have discussions and to have workshops together. And on that occasion, they can share experience of organizing EMAC activities. And we also invited experts to share with us their insights with our EMAC members. Now the photos show the scenes at the seminars, and on the right we've invited people who are very well versed in organizing activities to share with us. So this ties in with our 60th anniversary function. Effectiveness. Such activities, partnering arrangements, were very much welcomed by EMACs and the tenants, and they have high regard for such activities. We also conducted some surveys to see the satisfaction level of such activities, and 99% of the functions were assessed as satisfactory, and very satisfactory, 50%. And our focus, one of our focus, is on promoting neighborliness and enhancing people's sense of belonging to the community. Now, in terms of control and monitoring of expenditure and also administrative supervision, we do have a rigorous monitoring system. The EMACs and the estate management and estate manager and our housing department staff are strictly monitoring the activity to ensure that funds are properly spent. And also we've taken reference from the funding arrangements adopted by the DCs. And also headquarters colleagues are also randomly checking on the activities to ensure that the activities are carried out in line with the prescribed procedures. The way forward. 4 points that we would like to mention here. The first is we would like to promote the mutual love and care among different members of the family. We want to promote harmonious living within the PRH estate. Apart from providing a flat, we want to provide an environment conducive to people's living. Third, we would continue with the present partnering arrangements, working together with the NGOs. And lastly, having heard many views and comments, we would like to promote neighborliness and within the community so that people can come to mutual assistance with each other. And I think this point is very important. So we would be strengthening our work in that area. So much for my presentation, Madam Chair. So I welcome members' questions. Thank you. Several members have already raised their hands to speak. And now I'll ask members to speak 4 minutes, including answers and questions. If you can't finish all you want to say, then wait for the next round. Mr. Wong Kwok Hing first. Thank you, Madam Chair. I have 2 questions for the administration. There is aging population in PRH estates. In some estates, the problem is especially acute. I think we should take care of the singleton elders. They seldom come out and have activities. So my question for the administration is, would you consider, based on your information on hand, in areas where there is a large aging population, recommend to the EMACs that they should organize more activities for the elder singletons, perhaps paying visits to them, and if the weather gets cold, they should show some care towards them, provide them with the necessary support and so on. That's my first question. Second question. In PRH estates, neighborliness is very important. We work at the districts and we've received reports about tenants complaining about their neighbors on problems like smoking, burning incense, and falling objects from heights, and taking out their clothes to hang and for laundry and so on. So frictions may arise among the neighbors. So my second question is, the administration relating to the cases that I mentioned, would you be considering using the resources that you have to improve the relationships among the neighbors? Two questions from me. Mr. Lee. I'll take the first question, and I'll defer to my colleague to take the second question. Singleton, elderly. Well, they take up a large percent of the PRH tenants, over 20%, so we particularly care for them. And Mr. Wong should well know that under the partnering arrangement, we've asked the NGOs to try to do as much as possible to outreach to these elderly in need. We provide a platform from them. In 2013-14, I don't have the detailed breakdowns of the figures. Around one third of the 400 activities are targeted at the elderly, women, and families. We agree with what Mr. Wong said. Well, when the weather turns cold, the elders may need more care and support. So we would like to ask to use this partnering platform to ask the NGOs to actually outreach to these people in need. Mr. Leung. Mr. Wong, or rather, as in my introduction, that is crucial to promote neighborliness. Mr. Wong's observation is right. If we can do more in promoting neighborliness, encouraging people to mutually help each other, then the number of conflicts among neighbors can be reduced and the problem alleviated. So for the next year, we would put more emphasis on activities promoting neighborliness and mutual help and so on. Mr. Kwok Ka, followed by Mr. Leung Chi-Chang. Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, in today's society, not only between girlfriend and boyfriend, and even family members within the same family may have conflicts. So I think it is essential we try to sort of improve the relationships and extend the networks of the families. I have several questions. EMAC may approve certain projects, and I think it's appropriate for them to take reference from the DC models in funding arrangements. Now, you said that 99% of the activities were assessed to be satisfactory. How did you come up with that kind of statistics? Because in the society today, it is quite questionable, such high level of satisfaction. Second, so who is the person who would be assessing the different needs of the PRH estates? Who are responsible for them? Is it the NGOs or is it the EMACs of each PRH estate? Now, after the assessment has been made, who makes the decision on the activities? Is it the EMACs, or would you be doing it in a still better way, i.e., seeking the views of all the tenants in the PRH estates, asking them what kind of activities do they want to be held? So that may enhance the people's sense of belonging to the estate. Do you have you considered that? I will take Mr. Kwok's question. Regarding the targets of the activities, we do include the families. In our PowerPoint just now, you can see that around 1/3 of the activities are targeting the families. Well, it is the EMAX which approved what activities to be held.
In doing so, members of EMAC would also conduct post-event assessment, and in the report, it would also assess the effectiveness of the activity and to what extent is well received. Well, it would look at the number of participants and whether or not the theme is consistent with the original theme in the application in order to assess if the event has been successful or otherwise. In other words, all the decisions will be taken by the EMAC. All right, after you've earned the experience and the EMAC has already got experience, so would you be doing some pre-event analysis? Would you be approaching the residents direct, whether they'd like to have the same NGO running the event or activities? Well, within the housing department every year, we have a comprehensive survey, and in the survey, one of the components is about the work of the EMAC in organizing activities, and in that comprehensive survey, we would also be targeting the tenants of our public housing estates, so we would also take on board their views and feedback for our analysis. Next, Mr. Leung Chi Chang, and then next Mr. Lee Chek Yen. With regard to this partnering arrangement, it has been in place for many years, since 2001, and if you look at the content of the event, it's been well supported by tenants. Mr. Kwok does not have to worry. It's very well received, but then it's not possible to ask each and every tenant for their views. But then the participants will be willing to give their response. And my impression is that such activities are good. But then through the organization of such activities, well, would it be able to get all the active tenants to take part? Well, that would be difficult, because only those who are concerned about the community will join. But then very often the same group of people will join, and in Taipo, only those who are usually very active in joining such events would take part in such activities. So if you ask me for my opinion, maybe the service scope could be broadened, and you will have to carry out more in-depth activities. It's not just about health checks or carnivals and so on. So only those who are extremely active will be interested. So you may have to go one step further. You will have to mobilize those who are pretty lukewarm about such activities, the so-called silent majority, so that the sense of mutual help and neighborhoodliness can be further boosted. And district councils have also been doing a number of things, including healthy living community, safe community, and friendly community. I think that's very important to promote a sense of belonging to the community. Well, for healthy living, you've been doing it. And then for safe community, I hope you can do a bit more. Recently in Tinu Estate, they have done this fire prevention event. And within the housing estates, I think it has served to boost the safety awareness of the residents. So you can consider doing a bit more. And also, you can promote the sense of friendliness. Well, in particular in the aging estates, facilities for the elderly, and also for access by the elders. In some cases, in designing the housing estate, you design them mainly for the younger generation. But then when people age, you might need to have more guard railing, for example, so that the elders can also see the improvement. And that would also be a way to improve neighborhoodliness instead of just organizing a few carnivals, spending a few $1 million. I don't think that's the only approach. And also in terms of promoting environmental protection, would you be doing a bit more work on promoting recycling? Can you tell us more about the 400 plus activities? So what are the emphasis? What are the themes for such activities? I'll answer the first two questions, and then on environmental protection, I'll defer to my colleague. I fully agree that very often these activities would only attract those who are the most active and enthusiastic. But then we agree with Mr. Leung's suggestion. That is, we would also have to reach out to those who are more silent and less active. But then we would not be focusing on the events themselves. We hope that after each event, after different NGOs have come in, they would also have a better understanding of the needs of that particular housing estate, and then after the event they can continue to reach out to these groups. So we hope that they can take care of both. But then we will bear that in mind, so that in organizing future activities we can place more importance in the post-event activities. Next, about environmental protection. Yes, I'll say a few words on that. Indeed, we all attach importance to environmental protection, and in different housing estates, we've been promoting recycling and greening. And as you know, we have been doing that in different housing estates. We are collecting glass bottles and also other recyclable products. We have also been promoting waste reduction. In fact, that is closely related with recycling, because if you waste less, then that will also help improve the environment. We also have the refuse collection points, which are fully covered, and also we are preparing some souvenirs and small gifts in promoting the tenants to do a bit more in waste reduction, so that overall quantity of domestic waste can be reduced, and there will also be more recycling. Yes, you're right. We'll be doing more such work. In fact, last year, can you be a bit faster, because we are overrunning on time already. Next, Mr. Lee Chek-yen. Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, on the way forward, the targets are highly exaggerated. You can also say that you're promoting world peace, because, love and care among family members, and also neighborhoodliness, these are very high-sounding and lofty goals. But the problem is, I do not see how such arrangements will be anything different from what's been done all along. All right, we've been doing blood pressure checking, and these activities are just a repeat of what's being done on a regular basis. So it's not just about duplicating those efforts. And if you're doing very much the same year after year, is it really meaningful? You said that the NGOs have come in to reach out to these different targets and so on. But then how many people can you reach every time? And also for the NGOs, we all know that many NGOs, in particular those who are subsidized by the government, they also have their own projects. And even if you allow them to go in, and if they do not have a long-standing project, they would not be doing too much. So they would just be able to touch the surface, but not going anything in depth. So my suggestion is you should not be repeating yourself. Do you have new initiatives so that you'll be able to achieve some new targets? For example, in simple terms, why don't you just encourage them to pay mutual visits to their homes? So that would be more effective than organizing carnivals, because it's always easy to organize a carnival, a roving exhibition, and also health check and so on. So would you narrow your target a little bit so that you would be able to measure the effectiveness or otherwise more easily? Would that be more constructive? Yes, Mr. Leung? Yes, Mr. Lee gave us some suggestions. We will take on board those suggestions. You talk about home visits. Indeed, every year we would organize some core activities, for example, community building, neighborhood nearness, and so on. But then these are the core values of the housing estate. That's why we have always insisted on doing those. And Mr. Lee was suggesting that there should be more home visits. I think that's a very good suggestion. All right, when these activities become more mature, we can have a more diversified approach in order to cater for the needs of a particular housing estate. For example, if there are more elders in a particular housing estate, we can conduct more home visits. And you also said that some elders might be more inactive and inert. So we will see if we can mobilize them into participating in more activities. So these are ways that we can explore. Yes, of course, it's okay if you can explore those ways and means to reach out to them. But then again, it's not very focused. I hope that you can adopt a more focused approach. Instead of just doing this as a fishing expedition, and then you can have different blossoms blossoming at the same time. I hope that in the future you can adopt a more focused approach instead of just doing a bit of everything. And then it simply won't work. I hope that you can have a more focused approach in the future. Next, Dr. Fernando Jiang. Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the intention is good. You're promoting neighborhoodness. How can we say no to that? But then the problem is we have different resources in doing this. On the one hand, we can see that the district councils have been organizing many such activities. They have social service committees, and funding has also been made available to NGOs, and then the district officers would also be organizing such activities, and NGOs in the district would also be organizing such activities. So for major carnivals or one-off initiatives, well, it's not that they are not good, because people can have fun in those activities, and then the HD has been setting aside resources for that. But then if you really want to promote neighborhoodliness, you should be targeting groups in needs. In the past, I've also dealt with some cases in which some disabled persons who might have children, they might not be very small children, they might be in their 20s, and yet they are suffering from autism, or they might be more prone to shouting and yelling or making noises. They might be knocking themselves against the wall, or they might be trampling on the ground, causing a lot of tension with neighbors. Or there might be some who are suffering from mental disorder, and their behavior might be somewhat weird, and that would also cause a lot of tension with the neighbors. And also in some aging estates, you may have many elders, and some of them do not go out often, or they might be hiding a lot of things in their flats. So how are you able to identify their needs and then reach out to them and help improve their relationship with the neighbors? So these cannot be resolved by holding one or two one-off carnivals, because people would just go to the carnivals and have fun. But then why don't you adopt a more focused approach in helping these households or households in need? I think EMAC knows that very well. because you've been organizing those regular activities, why don't you just reach out to these households in need? All right, you are adopting this the merit score approach, and then after a while you try to evict them. Why don't you try to reach out to help them? You can also train up your management staff so that they would know how to help these residents in need. Yes, thank you, Dr. Jiang, for your questions. As you said, we fully agree with your suggestion. That is, at the district level, we have the district councillors and the district office. They have got funding for these activities.
For the EMAC, certain designated members are in fact district councillors. So when we approve the funding for the activities, we are in fact consulting the district offices how they feel about activities of a certain theme, whether there is any overlapping of activities before we proceed with organizing them. Now, as for special groups with special needs, and actually for some of the programs organized each year, they are related to outreaching to these groups, paying home visits to these people. And in the course, we find that they may be families with people suffering from autism, and maybe singletons, and if needed, we will refer the cases to the relevant departments for follow-up. Next, Mr. Tony Chair. Like other members, I am all for activities promoting neighborliness. Now, over the years, the activities come in various themes, and you also mentioned about the way forward. I'm sure that EMACs will consider what kind of activities would suit a certain estate best. When we talk about boosting neighborliness, we are talking about a wide scope, I think, and many activities fit under that heading. Now, for the past 3 years, a number of activities have been organized. Some of them are one-off. It may be held this year, and then another type of activity may be held next year. So have you ever considered that some members already said that some activities have to be held on a continuous basis to promote certain themes? As for example, greening activities. You may want to promote the greening concept, and also for some caring activities, that may also be another example. So in your way forward, what is the target for each estate? Would you be asking certain estates to continue doing something because some objectives can't be achieved by a one-off event? Now, if we want to do that, do we have other sources of resources to carry out these activities? Mr. Leung. Mr. Chair is right in pointing out that certain activities have to be carried out continuously. It's not that we are not giving consideration to such activities. At the HD, we do issue guidelines to EMACs on certain activities to be held. So we do issue guidelines, for example, this year to ask the EMACs to promote neighborliness. And the estate manager is in fact the chair of the EMAC, and the estate manager always plays a leading role in driving the direction of the EMACs. And we are closely monitoring the effectiveness of EMAC's activities. We will make adjustments every now and then. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. Thank you, Madam Chair. one of our themes is supporting the young people, but it seems few activities are being organized. Let's look at the figures. 2020, 12, 16, 12 to 13, 30 activities. 13 to 14, 24 activities. I live in a PRH estate. Of course, I understand that the young people would normally not like to join estate activities. Even if you have such activities, they may not come and take part. If you're talking about enhancing neighborliness, if you can mobilize young people to take part in activities like greening activities, then that would be very good. I think you are adopting an approach which is like a giving to the people in need. I don't think this is desirable, this kind of approach. There are many different types of people in the community, the elders, young people, and the women. And the elders are always those on the receiving end, and the women may be on the giving end and also the receiving end. But then young people, they would not be at the receiving end. Now your budget is like this. $10 per household, so 3,000 units, $30,000 for a small estate. $10 per household, this is a very minimal sum. So if we really want to do something in promoting neighborliness, you should ask people to give rather than to receive. I think this is the gist of the whole exercise. Now, I live in a PRH estate, and I think environmental protection is not, it isn't enough done on that front. I know that there has been some improvement, say, in recycling of glass bottles and so on. And I think you should do more in that regard. The elders, of course, would have no problem with your program. They would like to be benefiting from such programs. So 2 points. First is you have to beef up the budget, and you don't have to do 4 activities. You can just do 1 and then spend a lot of amount on that. Now, say if you organize a carnival, then you may have to hire sound equipment. And then that is very costly. So I'd rather you do away with the carnivals, and instead, each EMAC should focus on 1 theme and then do 1 activity. Just do 1 project instead of 4. Who to take that question? Mr. Lee. I would like to clarify. It's not that there is a $10 for per household. $30 per household is for organizing such activities. In the past year, $19 million has been allocated for this partnering program, and only 60% has in fact been used. And for large estates, we find that a cap of $50,000 is just appropriate. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. If you look at the paper, bracket 04, then that's what stated there. You said 2 to 3 functions, $30, and that would be amount to $30,000. So let's discuss that after the meeting. I think you've made the wrong calculation. Mr. Lee. Well, it's not, the $30 is per household, not per event. Well, do the sum again. $30 per year and 3 activities. So how much can be spent on 1 activity? Mr. Leung's question is that even if you say it's $30 per household, and then you are organizing 2 to 3 activities, and divided by $30 divided by 2 to 3, then that's a very minimal amount. So how much can you do with that small amount of money? So Mr. Leung Kwok and others have said that can you organize more in-depth activities which are on a continuous basis, more sustainable, and instead of organizing, say, a picnic using $10 or what, can you do activities which are more sustainable, which are on a continuous basis, or rather we can just organize one big meaningful event instead of 3 to 4 events per year? I think you should have got my point. I think it's best that you ask the young people to serve the elderly. I think Mr. Leung's point is very good. For some EMAC activities, while they are not just really giving our services to people, we actually encourage people to participate, taking a participatory approach. So we, for example, for some waste reduction programs, we are asking the EMACs and the residents to come up with ideas on how to further promote the program. Now for the program where the waste will be covered and so on, we are asking the young people to take an active part. Well, it's all right as long as you understood my point, and that's all right. I'm not here to argue with you. If you can mobilize young people, they can be a good resource for you. Because you are organizing only 16 activities for young people, you don't have to show care and concern for the young people. Instead, you should ask the young people to be the giver, to show care and concern to other people in the community. So, Mr. Lee, can you go back and think about this? Apart from what Mr. Leung's suggestion, other members have raised a similar point. Well, since you don't have sufficient resources to organize activities attractive to young people, we think instead you should ask them, mobilize them, the young people, to provide services and to serve people in the community. And also, we've repeated this many times, that let's not just organize one-off activities like carnivals. Organize activities which can really be more in-depth and reach out to people in the estate and the community. So go back and think about this. I would like to supplement, Madam Chair. Well, you may get the impression that we are just organizing carnivals and nothing else, but that's not the case. We did have home visits and we have interactive functions as well. Of course, we do have carnivals, but also other activities as well. We go on home visits and so on. So I think your opinions are very good, so we will consider them. I think it's a matter of ratio. And actually, not EMACs, but many other bodies are organizing carnivals. District councillors, NGOs are also organizing carnivals. Well, carnivals can never be too many, but then I think EMACs should do some service which nobody else is offering. If we want to promote neighborliness, well, do more home visits, adjust the ratio among the different activities. Well, thank you very much, the 3 government officials. Let's move on to the next item. Please invite the administration team in. The next item is the Public Works Program items number B080TI and B081TI is public transport interchange and association works to support public housing developments at Kwai Chung and Xingping. Paper number CB1130/1415-05. This is a paper submitted by the government on these 2 projects. Representing the government are officials from the Housing Department and the Highways Department and the Transport Department. So I'm not going to introduce them one by one. You should have their name list in the paper tabled before you. First of all, I would like to call upon the government officials to take us through your paper, and I know that you will use a PowerPoint. Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to take members briefly through the projects on the PTI and associated works to support public housing developments at Kwai Chung and Pingshan. This paper seeks member support on our proposal to upgrade B080TI and B081TI to Category A to support public housing developments at Kwai Chung and Pingshan, and that is to build a PTI, and also to carry out junction improvement works along Kwai Chung Road, and also PTI and associated works to tie in with the housing development at Kwai Chung and Kyu Chung Shan Road, Ping East. We propose to build a PTI at Kwai Chung and also carry out improvement works at the junctions at Kwai Chung Road, Kwai Fu Road, and Kwai Chung Road, Kwai Yik Road. For the PTI proposed at the Kwai Chung Container Road, there will be 4 bays, each for coaches, franchised buses, green minibuses, and taxis. And each of these 4 types will take up 1 bay. Now, from this,
you can see the appearance of the proposed PTI. The proposed project is to tie in with the public housing development at the former police married quarters, and some 860 units will be built, accommodating some 2,400 residents. And we would also like to ease traffic congestion within the area in order to cope with the proposed or the foreseen traffic growth, and therefore we have to have this B080TI, and taking the Pingshan PTI as it's located in Pingshan Tin Shui Wai West Rail Station South. We propose that 2 existing PTIs be demolished so that a dedicated PTI for buses can be built, and then 4 bays can be built, and they will also have an escalator linking with the West Rail's Tin Shui Wai station. And members will be able to see from the 2 photo montage the artist's impression of the proposed PTI and also the proposed public transport interchange and footbridge, and that will also tie in with the HOS scheme in Pingshan, and some 2,400 units, about 7,700 people will be living there, and we propose to build the PTI in order to vacate the land for the construction of housing, and to cater for the need. We will also have to build a footbridge crossing Pingha Road, linking up with the Tin Shui Wai station, and the footbridge will provide convenience to the pedestrians so that they can have better accessibility to the station. And also in Pingha Road, we will also be able to segregate the pedestrians from the road traffic, and that would also help enhance road safety. We have already consulted the TTC of the District Council. They have noted this, and they also supported the program. And under the road, we have also gazetted the projects under the road traffic ordinance, and we have not received any comments. And according to the estimates on money of the day prices, we expect that to cost about $72.7 million and $602.2 million respectively. With your support, we plan to submit these 2 projects to the PWSC and the FC in December and January respectively, and with approval granted, the PTI works will start in April next year, and we expect that the projects can be completed in 2017 and 18 respectively. We urge members to support these 2 public works projects. Thank you. All right, Mr. Tony Chair, 4 minutes, inclusive of questions and answers. Thank you. I have no in principle qualms about the 2 projects, but then I think what we need to consider is about how we can make the best use of these sites. All right, there are 2 main questions here. My impression, and of course I haven't got sufficient information to make that comment. But then in designing PTIs like these, often the time you have a safety island, and then you have the pavement for the pedestrians and so on. So for many years, they've been designed like that. And some years ago, I remember the site might be somewhat larger. That's why you build it as if it's an island, and then you can park around it. So that would provide a convenience to the people waiting. But then now we have this footbridge, and then for other facilities, they cannot be accommodated. So how are you really able to make the best use of the site so that you can have one row of cars and then one row of people waiting? Is that the best way of designing it? And also in the yellow part here, you're trying to do some greening, and basically that's to improve the environment. But then it's very much one directional. Does it have to be that way? Is that the best way to make use of the site? How about people passing by the carriageways? Okay, you can have people queuing up to wait for a bus. But can there be more diversified designs? Because if you look at the blue part, alright, I don't know if they are raw pavements, alright, if you can make use of that, that's okay. But then what if it's not what if it's not used? Alright, you have the red part and then the blue part. Will many people be using all of them? And does it have to be in a circular shape surrounding that? Does it all have to be pavements? And Mr. Leung also said that you're trying to make the best use of the site, and well, how about the land and how about the underground? Can that be used as well? So I think the overriding principle is to make the best use of land resources. I don't understand, because every time you have very similar designs, and for many years we have seen similar designs. Is it that no one can come up with brighter and newer ideas? Who is to answer this? Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for your comment. In fact, in the paper that we have submitted, there are two different designs for the PTI. Well, for the one at Container Terminal Road, it's a newer design, or the Container Port Road. Well, very often there are some site constraints which might mean that our design cannot be very flexible. For example, if you look at the one at Container Port Road, you can have some seesaw shape base on the roadside that would facilitate areas which have a very high traffic flow without many people waiting. But then, and then for the one at Kiu Chang Road, I think the advantage is that there would be complete segregation of the vehicular traffic from the pedestrians, so that pedestrians will be waiting at a different location for vehicles. Well, this is a public works project, and if there is any direct or indirect pecuniary interest in accordance with Rules of Procedure 83A, before you speak, you will have to disclose the nature of such interest. You will also have to be you will have to note the rules regulating or governing voting under 84. Tony Chair. Next, Leung Chi Chang, and then Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to go back to the Ping Shan PTI. If I remember it correctly, when it was discussed at the District Council, many councillors suggested that there should be a cover. It's not like what you propose here in a diagram. You only have some shelters, but then we all understand that you're going to build an HOS court right next to it, and if it's not a full shelter or a full cover, the noise will be very annoying to the residents nearby. So can you tell me whether or not you'll be building a cover in order to shield off the noise? And also for the footbridge, looking at the direction here, it would be located near the library, so a footbridge will be built from there, coming down at the West Rail Station, and then it will be connected to the bus terminus. So you can have one bridge serving both locations. But then if you're going to use a lift to carry the people there, would that be overloaded? Because right next to the library, it can also access the West Rail Station. So would that be connected to the West Rail Station? And if you use a lift system, it would definitely not be sufficient. So will you be using an escalator system in order to speed up the flow? Because if you look at the HOS court, there would be many people from the housing estate using the system. And also for the cycling or the bicycle park, after they have parked their bicycles there, they will have to go there on foot. So will there be sufficient spaces for them to park their bicycles? Well, in Pingshan, the PTI does have a cover. And for the bus space, that would not affect the surrounding area. But then according to your plan, it's just a light cover. It's just a roof. It's not fully enclosed. Yes, there will be 12 shelters, and they would be able to shield off noise. So even though it's not fully enclosed, it would be able to shield off the noise, and that would also ensure good ventilation. And even the FSD, after we have talked to them, there's no need for us to install it with an automatic sprinkling or sprinkler. So that's in line with the requirement. In fact, in Hong Kwook, we have a similar setup, and the shelter or the cover would be able to shield off the noise so that it would not affect the residents nearby. And also for bicycle park and also the cycling track, I'll defer to my colleague to answer. Mr. Wong? Yes, thank you for the question. Concerning the traffic flow, well, the lifter would be a sizable one. Some 16 passengers can take the lifter in one go. We have a consultant doing the assessment on our behalf, and we've been told that it should be big enough. How about parking spaces for bicycles? Can you repeat the question, please? Well, I can see that for the cycling track, that would be right at the entrance. So would there be parking spaces for bicycles at the entrance? Yes. In fact, within the housing estate, there should be sufficient parking spaces for bicycles. And we have done so in accordance with the Transport Department and the Planning Department's requirements in providing parking spaces for bicycles. Next, Lang Kwok Hong. Thank you, Madam Chair. I have seen the layout of the PTI at Pingshan, and apparently it's somewhat different from the one in Kwai Chung. Alright, you try to facilitate the traffic, but what I'm interested in is the one at Pingshan. For PTIs, which are located in a densely populated town center, often the time they do not have sufficient parking spaces or sites for public uses. So in Pingshan, is it possible for you to dig deeper? So is it possible for you to have some facilities underground? I think unlike in the downtown area, there should not be many underground facilities like cables or gas pipes and so on. Or is it that there are a lot of underground facilities like what you found along Jordan Road when they tried to build the XRL? Alright, I'll be straight with you. all right, either you build it taller or you dig deeper. Well, we are often short of land. Yes, you might say that we don't have enough land for that, but then you will have to be prepared for that. It's like a typo. Because I'm a typo district councillor, often a time we were told that there weren't sufficient parking spaces in the downtown area, and then in a housing estate you try to identify land for parking purposes. In Pingshan, I don't know if the right place for me to raise this. Well, you have called it a PTI, a public transport interchange, and you should have parking or even sitting out areas. So if it's a genuine PTI, it should have been a living zone whereby people can do their grocery shopping and so on. How come they can do it in overseas countries? Why are you not able to do the same? So in any case, you're going to do it, so why don't you do it as well?
I'm talking about Pingshan. Mr. Lam. If I to dig deeper underground and build a basement, the costs will be driven up substantially. Understand? I know that costs will rise, but there are business opportunities arising from it. If you can dig one floor lower or underground, then you can build a car park or a shopping center and so on. For some other areas, that may not be feasible because there are too many underground utilities and so on. Now, you are talking about big PTI that can be a living circle boasting many business opportunities. Because next to it, there will be an HOS development. And even if you are talking about a shoe, sort of a shoe repair shop, then, well, that can be done too. Laundry shops and so on. So all these can be considered. You don't have to answer me. You just bear in mind what I said. I'm not here to argue with you, Mr. Lam. A brief reply here. When we designed this PTI, we would have the design bearing in mind the HOS development next to it. And in the HOS development, there are already retail facilities provided. Next round, Mr. Tony Chair, 4 minutes. Thank you, Madam Chair. Like many members, we're just making suggestions on how to best use the land for such PTI. And the design is that we'll have one row of public vehicles after another. And then there is this another design for the PTI where there is a large traffic island in the middle and the vehicles are parked around it. And the beauty of that other design is that people can actually relax and sit in the middle of the traffic island. Now, for this particular design that we have, it has been used for so many years. And you may say that you are using better materials these days, but that's not good enough. Perhaps you can ask some experts to help you out to how to best use the land and come up with a better design. In that, you can do away with one row after another in terms of having the public vehicles parked here, and it's so narrow, the strips, and you can't provide for benches for people to sit and relax. Now, for the one in Kwai Chung, it will be there will be a greening part, and it is visually more aesthetic, and it will provide better air quality and so on. But can you think more how to better use the site? People may have to wait for a bus for a long time, so if a better environment is provided, is good. Can say the two strips of traffic islands be combined and a larger waiting area can be provided for people to wait for buses, well, that may have an impact on the number of buses which can be packed at the same time. But that's I will leave the matter for you and the experts to study. But then anyway, my point is that can we come up with a better design and don't stick to the old designs? So I would just like to remind you of this. As to whether this is the best design, I am not the expert and I don't have the information. I can't give a comment. But I want to say that land resources are precious, and we are very concerned about how land can be best used. And we must bear in mind that people 30 years ago people today have different aspirations from those 30 years ago. So please pay attention to this. We are used to having such a kind of pattern, just copying the old models. Let's advance with the times. And please do that with the design as well. I may not have a ready answer for you now, but please pay attention to what I said. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for your comments. We will talk with the Transport Department colleagues to how to optimize the design, taking on board Mr. Chair's views. Next, Mr. Leung Chi-Chang. Madam Chair, I'm not happy with the answer provided by the Housing Department. The District Council has moved a motion to build a market above the PTI. But then we don't want this to stand in the way of the project. So some district councillors approve or agree that the project should be taken forward as soon as possible. I agree with Mr. Leung KWOK-Ka's views. Now, this is a sizable scale. There are 4 bays, not that many, in fact. But then in Tin Shui Wai South, this is a very important PTI. If you just use it merely for public transport interchange, then that's a waste of resources. There can be many business opportunities connected with this. The district council's suggestion may be is for a market to be built. I'm not sure this is the best option. But then at least we can think about building a shopping center to facilitate shopping by people. And they ask for a market because there aren't enough markets in Tin Shui Wai. Housing Department, perhaps you can hand over the site to the government and let them run it and then generate some revenue. I think your design as it is now can't abate noises, and the air quality cannot, the problem of air quality cannot be mitigated either. And also concerning the footbridge, you're talking about lift with a 16-person capacity. I'm sure you are going to receive complaints, and ultimately you might have to build another elevator or a lift. So my suggestion is you to build an elevator to allow heavier pedestrian flow, because the entrance is right next to the public library, and the place is frequented by so many people, and it's got a swimming pool in it as well. It's a 3-in-1 complex. So please don't take a compartmentalized approach, and the project is costly. It's some $600 million. So please consider revising the design and the plan. Thank you, Mr. Leung, for your comments. At the Yuen Long District Council, we did consultation for a long time, and many options have been floated. We have taken on board Yuen Long District Council's views, and that's why adjacent to the PTI PTI at the HOS, we will be providing for retail facilities and also the wet market. They're not housed above the PTI. They are being housed next to it. But then the scale of such facilities will be too small under your plan. Well, the retail development can't be housed in such a small plot that you propose. We have listened to District Councillor's views, and apart from the retail facilities, in the wet market there are over 40 stores, so it's by no means a small market. We have already revised our design based on District Councillor's views to meet with their demands. As to whether we need to install escalator, I'll defer to my colleague. Mr. Low, or rather Mr. Wong. We have come up with a design based on the consultant's estimate of the pedestrian flow, and we just don't rely on this footbridge, and actually people can go to that other part at grade. And there is another entrance near the culture complex, and actually people can go through various routes to the West Rail station. So based on the consultant's view, we think that a lift with a 16-person capacity is good enough. Well, we don't want to. We want to ensure that public funds are spent properly, so we don't want to go overboard in our design. Well, how many wheelchairs can be accommodated in a 16-person capacity lift? 1 wheelchair, 1 strollers, and several people accompanying these two wheelchairs and strollers. In many MTR stations, airport MTR stations, and so on, we have lifts which are not the capacity of which cannot meet with demands, and people are queuing up for them all the time. I asked the question, how many wheelchairs can be accommodated? Now, if say a wheelchair is already in the lift, my question is how many more can yet be accommodated? And we are often seeing that wheelchair people have to wait for a long time before they can take the lift. So I think we should anticipate the problems before they arise. I think maybe we should add 1 more lift or an elevator. Mr. Leung and I can tell you that after the lift is commissioned, we will definitely come to you to ask for an extra lift. And then you also present us with a work timetable. Can the commissioning date meet with or dovetail with the housing development nearby? Because we know that there may sometimes be delay in taking forward the proposals to the PWSC. If there are delays, what will happen? And also thirdly, for the project in Kwai Chung, the PTI is next to Container Port Road. Have you made an estimate on the number of people who would use it? For the green minibuses, they normally would have a stop in Kwai Fong MTR station, and that would provide a feeder service to passengers. And if you are having a stop at the Container Port Road PTI, can you imagine how many people will actually walk there, or will it really instead inconvenience people? Mr. Tony Chair also mentioned that this is a big PTI, and you just have these several bays designed within it. Say, if people have to wait for public transport in this area. This is quite a remote area, and wonder whether people will actually make use of the PTI because it's quite remote and it's quite a far away location. And people may be asking you to relocate this PTI back to the a location near the Kwai Fong MTR station. Thank you, Madam Chair. On the timetable first, for the Kwai Chung PTI, we envisage that works will commence in April next year and will be completed in February 2017. And for the housing development project, it will be completed in early 2018. So this PTI should have been completed 1 year in advance of the housing development. As for the project at Pingshan, the project works will commence in April next year and will be completed in 1st of January 2018. And the housing development project will be completed in Pingshan will be completed in March 2018. Concerning possible delays, actually, the estimated completed time for the PTI is 1 year in advance of the people's moving into the housing development.
We have already set aside time for contingency situations so that the PTI can commence operation before the intake of population. With regard to Pingshan, as we just said, we have also allowed for a more relaxed contract period so that there will not be a situation whereby we have already started the population intake before the commissioning of the PTI. And if there is a need to expand the capacity of the lift, according to our current estimate, it should be adequate. But then after listening to Madam Chair's comments and other members' comments, we'll see if we need to expand the design of the lift in anticipation of possible future use. With regard to the Kwai Chung PTI, there's a minor issue, and I'll defer to the Transport Department. Thank you. With regard to the newly added PTI in Kwai Chung, in principle, one of the main purposes is to make sure that, from the Container Port Road to Kwai Fong MTR station, the traffic can be reduced. So initially, the PTI would mean that for non-franchise buses, for example, factory buses, they can stop here so that they do not have to go to the MTR station in Kwai Fong to pick up and drop off passengers. And then for the new PTI, there will be subways to link it up with the MTR so that for people in need, they can go down by those means. So, Madam Chair, you also said that for vehicles from other districts, can they be diverted here? We'll listen to the residents' views before we decide. Next, Leung Chi Chiang, third round, 4 minutes. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not going to move a motion today because in moving a motion, that will definitely affect the progress of your project. I don't want your project to be delayed. But then next time round, when you go to the PWSC, if you do not make any modification, I'll be moving a motion to force you to change it. Number one, as the chair just suggested, with regard to the capacity of the lift connecting the footbridge, either you expand it or you build an additional escalator. Second, I would also urge you to make sure that in building the PTI, you will have to have additional piles there for future expansion. As we understand it, if you ask them to change it later, alright, they have already completed the works. But then if you can have additional piles there, so that in future, even if there is opposition from the PRH residents, you will still be able to do it, and the additional resources will not be too many. So I hope that you can submit the additional information next time when you go to the PWSC, or else I'll be blocking your proposal. Yes, with regard to the lift proposal at the footbridge, we'll consider that in the in-depth study. As to the design of the PTI, it's about the overall planning, and we will have to discuss it with the Transport Department. With regard to the size of the PTI, we'll take it up with the Transport Department. Yes, Tony Chair, third round 2, 4 minutes. Number 1, I'm not going to vote against this, and I'm not going to block it from going to the PWSC. But then I've already given you some suggestions with regard to the design of PTIs. I hope that either the Highways Department or the Transport Department can give us more detailed explanation when they go to the PWSC. I understand that there must be justifications for this design. I just want to know a bit more before I decide if I want to support it at the PWSC. But then at this stage, we are still at the panel. I have no objection of it going to the PWSC. I would also like to state this here. Well, I share the view of Mr. Leung Chi-Chang, that is for the Ping Shan project. Other than the lift and also the cover, I don't think the cover will be able to shield off noise, because we have seen many consultants who tell you that the cover should be able to shield off noise, but then according to the residents, it's not working. And then in the end, when we asked for improvements, they said that it's not okay because of the loading issue, and there can not be any retrofitting of additional facilities and so on, and then residents will suffer. So I hope that you will understand it. Alright, when you carry out projects, you might be considering that from your perspective. That is from the engineering angle. But then for both me and Leung Chi-Chang at the district level, we have seen many such cases. So we will not be trusting the figures from the consultant. We will be considering it from the user's perspective. Now coming back to the container port roads PTI. Yes, indeed, I understand that at the district council you have already consulted them many times. But then district councillors have got this view, including myself. I've already told you that for the GMBs, alright, right next to the MTR station, they would be able to pick up passengers. And now you're asking them to go all the way to the PTI. Well, however many footbridges or escalators there might be, it's already very inconvenient to the passengers. So we will not go against your construction of the PTI, but then when it comes to actual use, there might be different councillors or different groups who will be telling you that, sorry, yes, you can stop there, but then at the MTR station, you will have to have an additional pick up and drop off points. So it's not going to help you at all. So please think about it. And also for this PTI, as Tony Chair just put it, and also Mr. Leung Kwok Hong has put it, alright, this is a location which is neither here nor there. It's in the middle of nowhere. So if I ask you to have an additional pick-up and drop-off point near the MTR station, then I would not be bothered to go to that PTI. And if you want to make it attractive to passengers, alright, it should not just be a PTI for people to take public transport. You should also consider having additional facilities there. For example, a market. Well, if you just have a 40-store market, it's not big enough. Because if you don't have many stores, it's not going to be viable. Because with fewer stores, the market would not be very attractive. And also at the container port road, well, it's really in the middle of nowhere. And if you are there, if you want to go to a 7-Eleven in order to add value to your Octopus card, you simply will not be able to find one nearby. So where can you get your where can you add value to your Octopus card so that you can board a bus? So we are not trying to block the project here. But then after it's commissioned, again, we will have to make life difficult for you. We will ask you to add certain facilities here and there. So please do not just think about it from the engineering perspective. Even if you try to do that, you will also have to enrich your design so that the users will be able to benefit. Thank you, Madam Chair. On the cover of the PTI is a new design. Initially, this design was used in Hong Shui Kiu and also another PRH project at Shui Chuno. It's not just something coming from our consultant. In fact, the EPD has discussed this with us on many occasions, and we have asked them to take a look, and then they gave us the green light, because it would be able to shield off noise nuisance. So it's a newer design that can shield off noise. And I'd also like to supplement with regard to the PTI at Pingshan. In fact, at the district council, when we talked to them, there were two camps of views. One is on the cover of the PTI, there should be some retail facilities, but then another camp said that because right next to it, we have already got the multi-story HOS scheme, and therefore we have to ensure that there would be good ventilation, and also the visual impact would not be too obstructing. That's why, after consolidating those views, these facilities would be placed inside the HOS scheme at Pingshan, and then above the PTI, nothing is there. That would also be more in line with the cost effectiveness of the project. So it's a balancing act after taking into account all the feedback that we have received. So can I invite members to indicate if they would support this project be passed on to the PWSC for consideration? No objection. So we all agree, and we support that this item be referred to the PWSC for consideration. But then I hope that before you go to the PWSC, you will take on board the views expressed by members, in particular with regard to the design, including how you can make the design more flexible and how you can enrich the design. And second is about the cover and also the lift issue. And thirdly, at the container port road, how can you make it more attractive so that more passengers will be inclined to using it? So it will have to be passenger friendly. So I hope that when you go to the PWSC, you can furnish us with additional information. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members. All right. Any further questions from members? If not, next meeting will be on the 1st of December. Okay, meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.